Welcome to Parenting on Empty. This is podcast number 4.
Yeah, come back again without your kids.
Today in our broadcast, we're going to talk about the difficulties of older parents with children relating to their peers who are older as well, but already have the children out of the home, so the empty nesters. My husband sat down with his sister and brother-in-law and interviewed them. They have been empty nesters for a few years now, and we go and visit them regularly with our kids and kind of ask them to tell us what are some of the difficulties that you encounter, how do you feel about your peers who bring their children over into your home. And we're going to interject some of their comments with some stuff that we talk about today, examining some of the challenges.
Just because of age and stage, all our friends are becoming grandparents as we are, and there's a lot of things we have in common.
Right.
And so when we have friends that come over that have smaller and older bracket, we have a couple people we know in your situation, it does change the dynamic of the evening, and it depends on what we want to do, whether we just want to sit around and have adult conversation, share a great bottle of wine. Probably not going to include them.
Okay. I knew that.
Notice, but
I don't think it's, being empty nesters, and maybe it's a little different with you guys because you're family, but if another couple wants to come over and bring their kids because they're at that stage in their life, to me it's just not that big a deal because we raised kids, and I know how time-consuming and committing and exhausting that can be, and it's not always easy, and maybe you don't always want to leave them with a babysitter. What would make the difference between sustaining the relationship with me is assuming you weren't family, for example, or even if you were, if the kids were real poorly behaved, we wouldn't be getting together very often.
Either way. Okay.
If they were well behaved and polite, they can sit at the table and have dinner with us,
That's true. And if it's just, say, like us getting together with Lenny and Ann, oh yeah, we're going to include the whole family. But if I want to do a nice dinner for you because maybe you're turning 50 again, and I want to do placemats and set a nice table, I'm going to be careful of who I include to that because I'm going to want a flavor for the evening. But if it's just people I want to stay in touch with, oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Well,
But unless,
hopefully,
like Carl said, if their children are not any fun to be around, that's what will kill it more than anything.
I think personally it's a good thing to have a conversation with friends who are empty nesters when you are someone who has children, and especially if your children are rambunctious and maybe you're well aware of issues that you're going to have with your children, that they just like to get into things, they like to grab stuff, they just like to explore. I think it's very healthy to sit down with those friends and say, we value your relationship, and we think it's important that we have a conversation. It doesn't have to be a long, extended conversation, but just to talk about your attitude about our children and what you feel comfortable with, and honestly have that conversation what you don't feel comfortable with.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea, even from the parent's perspective, saying, I'm well aware my child is like this, and if you have a problem with them while we're there, if they're getting into something you don't want them to get into, or if there's an issue, either you have my permission either to tell them to stop, no, and remove them from that, or come and talk to me and I will take care of it. But I don't want you just to sit there and be really upset because my kids are trashing something that you really value and that I had no idea is a problem. Or sometimes it's just the noise level. Kids are not always sensitive to, I should be quiet. And they start playing and it can be a noise level that's laughter and yelling because they're excited and happy. But people who haven't had that in their lives for a long time, it makes them tense and upset. I would prefer that the people tell me that they're uncomfortable with that, and we find a way to mitigate it instead of them just sitting there and steaming.
That's why I think it's important to have that conversation before things happen, before the emotion of, well, your kid broke my collector's plate or your kid got into the flower garden. So the emotions are not in it, and you can talk about that ahead of time. Now, probably there will be circumstances where it does happen. There are emotions and things happen and you get upset. And, of course, then you have another decision. Do I continue this relationship, or do we say to ourselves, no, it's just too difficult, it's too traumatic, I don't want to face that. Hopefully you are willing to face the hard times and the difficult times because of the relationship, and you're not going to throw away the relationship because of that.
Although I will say, as a parent, if another adult, an empty nester, is intolerant of my children when I think they're behaving perfectly fine, they're just being normal kids, they're not being destructive, they're not being overly loud, they're not doing any kind of obnoxious behavior, they're just being kids. If an adult is being intolerant and expecting them to be mini adults, and if the home is so unwelcoming to children, eventually I'm not going to want to go over there, and I'm probably not even going to be willing to invest a lot of time in the relationship, because it's not a matter of working through, it's a matter of that person not really loving my child, and I'm so invested in my child, my life revolves around them right now, that to hang out with someone who doesn't value them, who doesn't want to nurture them, who doesn't want to invest in them and help them become the people they were meant to be, is a person who is draining the little bit of energy that I have, and who essentially is kind of not supporting my mission, so to speak. They're not coming alongside us, which is what a friend does.
Right.
After the kids went off to college and Sarah got married, and we developed a whole new routine, and we didn't look like kids lived here, and even when you have kids that are, say, from about middle school on up, your home's no longer child-proof, and so then when you have a grandkid, you have to start thinking about that again, somewhat child-proofing and somewhat hoping that your kids or whoever your friends are that come over with little kids kind of keep an eye on them, because we're not going to, at this point, re-child-proof the entire house. Hopefully, again, Sarah and Peter keep their kids under control, or our friends who come over keep their 2-year-old from playing with all the knickknacks.
Yeah, perfect.
We shouldn't have to put them up.
No, perfect example. You walk into my kitchen, second drawer up from the bottom is all my very, very sharp knives. Sarah sees that and says, "Mom, you've got to move those knives to the top drawer." No, because when I pull out the cutting board, I want to be able to get to my knives, and that's the second.
Right.
Well, and the approach is she needs to teach Johnny to not come in the kitchen and open every drawer. Right. That's not acceptable behavior. Because we've raised kids, Kathy and I are really vigilant, keep an eye on the stairs, put up some things they could actually hurt themselves, but not completely redo the house for the occasional visitor. We do need to be a little more vigilant, which we're happy to do. What'll happen, at the end, let's say the end of the weekend or something, even watching your kids, and there's not too much they can get into, but the schedule's different, watching things, worrying, keeping busy. By the time they leave, we've tried to provide a really good time and a safe environment.
We're exhausted.
And we're thinking, man, I don't know how they do it at 50-something full-time. And we don't mind doing it, but by the time we're done, we're tired. Yeah. And then we get back to what is sort of our new rhythm of our life. We go, we kind of like this. And one of the things about empty nesting, and a friend of mine said it best years ago after his kids went off, I said, "So what's it like being alone with just your wife after 20-some years of raising kids?" And he said, "Carl, it reminds you all over again why you got married." Mm-hmm. And we're just kind of hanging out together, and sometimes we're sort of self-absorbed, just doing our thing, but we care enough about other people, and we certainly understand all of the responsibility that comes with kids. So if kids come over, hey, we're all for it, but we do expect a reasonable amount of behavior from the kids. But kids are kids. They need stuff to play with. They need to not get hurt. They're going to spill. We're okay with all of that. That's part of the drill. It's not, I think the problem could be sometimes, and we've had friends who never had kids, they can't handle it. They can't handle the spill. Yeah. They can't handle the noise. They can't handle the interruptions.
Yeah.
It just really stresses them out. And it's like, if
that
Johnny spills something, Johnny's 1.5 years. That's going to happen. If Mariah or Michaela spill something, or they're trying to help in the kitchen and they break something, you know what?
Yeah.
It's not that big a deal.
Yeah. I don't expect, as a parent with an older parent with young children, I don't expect as I go to people's homes for their homes to be entirely child-proofed. But it would help, from my perspective, if they say, here are the places that we would prefer you keep the kids out. Like if you have a living room that's a formal living room and you have a bunch of knickknacks, that kind of thing. It's probably not a good place for young children, because we already fight a lot of battles with our kids, telling them no, 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 no. And I really don't want to go to somebody else's home and spend my entire time running behind my child saying, no, you can't have that. Because especially young children, they don't know that when they're at someone's house that those knickknacks are no-nos. So you have to establish that first.
Right.
And they're going to test it because that's what kids do.
Exactly.
So I would prefer to just say that's a place the kids don't go.
Right.
And I will help monitor that and keep the kids out of that room. But we can't know ahead of time what's okay for the kid to do and what's not okay for the kid to do. So it's very helpful if, first of all, there's some sort of communication that says, here's what we would like you to do in our home. And then second of all, if there could be a place that is kind of designed, here's the little toy area. Right. And even if you want us as parents to bring our own toys or our own books or whatever, if you could provide, you as the empty nester could provide a place that is a safe environment for the kid, and just say, here are the boundaries, you stay in this room, here are your toys, here are the things for you to play with. That makes it livable and workable for everybody.
Sure, yeah, just bring a tent and set it up in the front yard and say, kids, that's where you stay. And I think that's what you said was a good idea. My idea might be questionable, but I think it might be a good idea. But yeah, to make a fun thing out of it, to say, hey kids, first thing we're going to do is have a tour of the home, and here is where you can play, and here, more importantly, is where you can't play. Just make it fun, so before something happens and before the anxiety level is up, to say, yeah, let's find out what we can and can't do in this house.
Probably the one person that I admire the most, who is an empty nester, but who behaves in a way that I hope I can do when I'm way down the road, going to be an empty nester. And that's our friend Brenda. She has just decided that she is going to make her home child-friendly, that she's going to be a grandma that the kids want to come and visit. And she's not much older than we are. She's a little bit, but she is our peers. She and her husband are our peers. But their kids have been gone for quite a while and already have their own kids. So she has grandkids coming to visit. But she plans things. She has an entire section in her home where it has drawers with things that the kids can just go to those drawers. They know these are our drawers. They're full of craft things. One drawer is kind of snack items, healthy type snack items that the kids can go and get something to eat when they need a little snack. She works on making sure that she has some books or some toys or things that are appropriate for the various age levels. And when the kid comes, she acknowledges that kid just as happily as she does the adults. So they feel important. And while we're at their house, she almost always tries to plan one sort of event that the kids really like, either making cinnamon rolls with the kids or taking them down to visit the goats or the chickens and just taking them for a walk outside. And for her, she has made that a priority, that if she's going to have a relationship with us, that means she's going to have a relationship with our kids. And just as much as she values us, she values the kids. And even though she's tired, and she is a lot, she puts herself out there and says, nurturing this, maintaining this is more important to me than my own comfort, than my own ability to rest and just have an adult conversation. Yes. And I miss adult conversation with her. I sometimes would like the kids to go away for a little while so that we could just chat. But she acknowledges where we are in our life right now and just works with it.
Would I openly communicate to somebody that I was having a problem with their kids to try to salvage the friendship? If somebody had a child that was just a complete terror and they'd run back and forth and they would hit a table and stuff would come crashing off of it, 9 times out of 10, those aren't really the kind of people that Carl and I would hang out with anyway, even with or without kids. I would like to think that if somebody's kid's just going nuts, they're going to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, let me stop that." I mean, right. But if they're oblivious to it, we're probably not that close with them. Those aren't kind of the people that we probably have a tendency to gravitate towards.
Okay. And if you did confront them, most people, especially it seems like with unruly kids, they're so blindly loyal to their kids that it's going to hurt the relationship because you were honest with them. Right. So then you have to decide. There's 2 ways to do it. You're either honest with them and take your chances on blowing the relationship, or you find a way to not do things with them and their kids.
Yeah, but very few people. Right. I mean, when Carl and I were younger and raising kids, and even now, we tend to gravitate towards people that are personality-wise like ourselves anyway.
I think to successfully navigate a relationship between an empty nester and their peers who have children, I don't know what we're called. What are we called?
We're called occupied nesters.
Occupy. It takes mutual respect along with the communication. I can't expect an empty nester to prepare their home in the same way that they would have for their children when my children are just coming over for a short visit. Their children live there full time, so obviously their home was made completely to cater to their kids. But I also believe that they need to know that when we come into their home, even if they tell me and assure me, "Oh, it's okay if something breaks, it's okay if they make a mess." If my kids do something that I think really interferes with those people's lifestyle and does some damage accidentally, just by being a kid, and even if they reassure me and say, "Oh, it's fine," they need to know that the next time I think about going over to their house, I'm going to have second thoughts. Not because I don't want to visit them, right, but because I don't want to impose on them. I don't want to cramp their style. I don't want to make their life more difficult. And obviously they're going to be polite to me and say, "Oh, it doesn't matter," but it does matter. And I want to be respectful to them and their property. So it may be that if we want to maintain this relationship, it's going to have to be a little bit unfair. And I may have to say, just because of the way I feel, not because of the way you are, but because of the way I feel, and I don't want my kids damaging your stuff. We're going to have to, for the next year or 2, until the kids get past this particular age, we're going to have to meet at our house for the time being, right, when we get together. And when the kids are a little older and better able to understand the boundaries and are more in control and more coordinated, whatever it is, then we can go back to meeting at your house as well. And if the empty nester is willing to compromise in that way and recognize it's not an insult to them, it's not us being really selfish, it's just, this is one of the ways that we can maintain the relationship and still both feel pretty good about what's going on, then I think we can continue down the road of deepening the relationship and continuing it.
Yeah.
But it does take both communication, respect, and a little give and take.
Being open and honest, how you feel about the issues, and having them be open and honest and how they feel about the issues and be willing to talk about them. That's critical. So I'll give the last word to my brother-in-law. He put it pretty succinct in just being open and honest about how you feel and communicating that.
You tend to, as you're going through life, a lot of your relationships with adults are centered around the activities of your kids, because you're going to youth group and PTA and all the things you're doing. You're in a stage right now where everything, for the most part, is about the kids, and that's the way it should be. And you're trying to, do your jobs and have your marriage and everything too. But your big priority is the kids. Well, naturally, you're going to be hanging out with people, with other kids. And, you've got a pretty wide age spread with your kids, which is also a bit unusual. Mm-hmm. Plus, you guys are older parents. But I don't see that. I mean, Kathy and I had kids, starting at about 30. We were the oldest kids at the PTA meeting, oldest parents at the PTA meeting. And, you get used to that. I mean, pretty soon it's like, well, she's young and she's got a kid same age as Marie.
What are you, 12?
Right?
You're making a decision like a 12-year-old.
You're just raising your kids and you're doing things. So then, let's say you have another couple that, let's say Virgil and his wife had kids that are grown and a lot older and done, and you're still friends and you do things with them. It just happens to be that their kids are out and your kids aren't. And I just don't see it as a big deal. I mean, we took our kids when we go to Dean and Idell's or we went to see John Samuels or any of these people. We were always invited with our kids to go see them, stay in their home. They valued our relationship. Of course, we lectured our kids all the way down. Now, behave and don't touch this and say please and thank you. And they always did all of that. Right. So we didn't have a big meltdown. And even I remember the first time we took the kids to Dawn and Jerry Morlock's, and Sarah dropped her plate and was like, broke the plate, broke the glass. And she was like in first grade, and Malia was in first grade, and Maria's about third grade. And Jerry, she'd had 5 kids and this and that. Oh, it's no big deal. Clean it up. Off we go. Nothing. That's just part of age and stage. Right. And they were perfectly fine with it. Whereas if we'd have done it, with a couple of other couples that never had kids and were, really materialistic about stuff, they'd have never had us back. because like somebody once said, that broken plate's more important than the friendship, and we don't look at it like that.